On April of 2024, Battlestate Games released a trailer for their brand new edition of Escape from Tarkov called the Unheard Edition, which is currently sitting at over 45,000 dislikes, and this announcement was so bad that it completely ruined Battlestate Games' reputation and all the trust that they had with the player base. So for context, Escape from Tarkov released into closed beta all the way back in 2017, and it managed to develop a pretty niche and dedicated fan base of players who just love the fact that the game is just so brutal and realistic with its combat elements, right? Because there's high stakes and actual risk to losing your gear every time you get into the game, which made every single match feel like intense PvP action, and it was the first time that extraction shooters were actually getting a chance to get into the spotlight. But it wasn't until 2020, where streamers started picking it up on Twitch, that the game really started to explode in popularity, because viewers were just addicted to the high-risk, high-reward gameplay from Escape from Tarkov, and with the extraction shooter genre being the popular new kid on the block in an industry that's been dominated by battle royales for years, well, suddenly you have games like Call of Duty and the Cycle Frontier starting to release their own extraction shooters, trying to get their piece of the pie as well. But despite the fact that all these other companies wanted to compete with Escape from Tarkov, and they all ended up falling flat on their face, well, Escape from Tarkov, the glory days might have just come to a catastrophic end, thanks to the recent controversy that's been causing the player base to just leave the game by the droves. So let me give you a quick rundown so you know exactly what happened with Escape from Tarkov. So for starters, the Unheard Edition of Escape from Tarkov, it's like if you were buying a collector's edition or an ultimate edition, so you basically just buy the base game and you get a bunch of add-ons on top of it. And this has been getting a lot of negative criticism from the player base for just about every single reason you could think of. From promoting pay-to-win mechanics, which is already pretty bad by itself, to being listed at a ridiculously overpriced $250 for the bundle, which, by the way, who in their right mind would be paying $250 in a day and age where like free-to-play games are just a dime a dozen? There's absolutely no reason for you to want to dump $250 for a game that's been in beta for over 6 years and still has no confirmed full release date. It just doesn't make sense, honestly. But putting the $250 aside, that's not the worst thing about the Unheard Edition. No, the reason people are so upset at this is because when the trailer dropped, Battlestate Games announced that the PvE co-op mode that has persistent progression would only be available to those who got the Unheard Edition. So $250 for you to be able to play a co-op PvE mode, but don't worry, there's still a lot more reasons for you to be upset about this, especially if you've been supporting Escape from Tarkov for years, because the fact that they're paywalling such a feature only counts for maybe like 20% of the hate, because the other 80% of the hate comes from the players who bought the Edge of Darkness edition of Escape from Tarkov, which came out all the way back in 2016, back when the game was still in closed alpha. And the reason that this part is getting the most hate out of them all is because out of all the perks that you were getting when you spent $150 to access and support the game's development all the way back in the day when you bought the Edge of Darkness edition, the most important one is that EOD players were guaranteed free access to all future DLCs. And then Battlestate Games came out with a statement saying that EOD players would just get the PvE content for 6 months, not permanent. So basically you get a free trial, and if you want to keep playing the PvE content, you would have to upgrade to the Unheard Edition. So obviously the community here felt like they were getting ripped off, because not only was Battlestate Games not honoring EOD users and asking them to spend an extra $250 for access to what they should have gotten from the get-go, but after seeing all the immense backlash that this was getting from the player base on Reddit, they decided to double down and triple down on their scam and started playing word gymnastics to try to justify the fact that PvE on Escape from Tarkov was going to be a feature and not a DLC, and because it wasn't a DLC, then EOD users were not entitled to the PvE content. You know, word gymnastics, I'm telling you, just doesn't make sense. If you bought Unheard Edition, you suck and are the reason the gaming industry is going down the toilet. I know we lied to you about those things we said, but hey, at least when you called us out for lying, we retracted some of it and said it made us sad that you found out about it. I don't trust anything as long as trained vendors involved. Man needs to resign. And look, if you're already at a point where you have to start looking for ways to do damage control after you get caught trying to be greedy, the last thing you want to do is antagonize the player base even more by telling them, hey guys, you guys don't know what DLC is. Like, I know what DLC is. You guys don't know. And this downloadable content that I'm offering you right now, this whole PvE expansion that is downloadable content, that's not DLC, guys. Don't worry about it. And the funniest part about all of this is that, unfortunately, Battlestate Games was not prepared for the amount of backlash that they would get from this, with players leaving by the dozen stating that they were done with Escape from Tarkov, and it got to the point where you had other studios like the people from Helldivers 2 and Arena Breakout just start clowning on Battlestate Games. So in response to all the massive hate that they got over the coming days, Battlestate Games would honestly just start crumbling apart trying to fix the massive issue by first offering a 50% discount to Edge of Darkness players who wanted to upgrade to the Unheard Edition, 70% discount to all EOD owners that wanted to purchase early access to the PvE, which the community abruptly responded with, no thanks guys, you're still scumbags, to then finally Battlestate Games caving in entirely and coming out with a post stating that PvE would now be open to all EOD owners for free, and that it'll be done in waves because they just don't have the server capacity right now. And okay, let's just make sure that we're all clear here. Battlestate Games got exposed for being greedy scumbags. They went ahead and broke the trust of their very dedicated player base by trying to scam them, basically, and when they had the chance to go like, hey guys, my bad, we messed up, let's try to fix this, they tried doing word gymnastics to double down and just keep justifying their actions. All of that just to end up being forced to backpedal in the end and giving the players what they should have gotten in the first place, but now you're just left with a tarnished reputation and people hate you. And the fact that this just went ahead and happened is actually a great thing for the gaming industry as a whole, because if you let game studios like this get away with it, if you let them just try to rip you off, then that can easily start trickling down into other game studios to the point that you have everybody doing it, right? It just becomes a norm. Kind of like how we just allowed unplayable day one launches of broken games to become the norm. That could happen here if you let the game studios get away with it. I know it's been 2 days, but don't do what the internet usually does and just move on like it never happened. Their latest solution is not good enough for EOD players, and if we don't keep bringing it up, then nothing will change. It's why companies think they can keep doing this, and if we let it go now, Battlestate Games will do it again because they will know that all they have to do is eat a couple of days of bad press. I still think we should be pushing back a little more against this ridiculous idea of $250 game editions and having content locked behind them, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but something similar has been happening to the battle passes recently. Battle passes used to be just cosmetics and something extra for you to grind for, but now companies have actually started locking quests and actual game experiences behind the battle passes, so it's like now they're selling you a base incomplete experience and now you have to pay extra money for you to be able to get the entire thing. The funny part about all of this is that Tarkov is the extraction shooter, right? It's completely dominated the market for years, and despite the fact that it's had its fair share of problems like cheaters, which are super detrimental in the extraction shooter genre, and the lack of a proper timeline for the full release of the game, which is something that the community is still pretty frustrated about, you know, apart from all of that, they're doing good. You know, they have no competition. Call of Duty DMZ couldn't compete with it. That's just how much dominance Escape from Tarkov had on the market, and they still managed to shoot themselves in the foot here. And now that the player base knows the type of people that actually run Battlestate Games and what their real intentions are, they might be opting to go ahead and try any other extraction shooter that's out there, or any other FPS game in general. Because now Escape from Tarkov has been permanently stained, they have a permanent mark on their reputation, to the point that if any competitor comes out now that even remotely resembles Tarkov gameplay, it might just be enough to completely replace Tarkov entirely because, you know, people just don't trust Battlestate Games anymore. And that might just be enough for it to be the end for the once unkillable game in the extraction shooter genre. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about with you guys today, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.